You're married to something. Are you married to your work? Or are you married to your spouse? Or are you married to your family? What is it? Because where you're spending your energy and where you're spending your focus, all of your energy is going to flow to. And every other area where your energy is not going is then going to be starved from your love. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Jacque Show. Today, we are going to do a deep dive into relationship analysis because this is a topic that has been happening and occurring over and over and over again. And this is for people who maybe they are brand new in a relationship, or they're still in a dating realm, or they're 20, 30 years deep in on a marriage, and all of a sudden one of the spouses starts growing. What happens? How do you handle that? How do you handle conflict resolution? And then how do you build from there? Now, nowadays, it seems like a lot of relationships are built off of a superficial foundation. And I mean, a lot of it is, yes, based off of looks, but nobody really knows like those in-depth layers of like what makes you tick, because a lot of us are damaged from either our parents or our previous generations or previous relationships that we always try to guard ourselves. We watched a TV show last night. Yes, I watch TV occasionally. And this girl was talking about putting a cage around her heart to protect from heartbreak. And yes, women do that, but men do that as well. And when it comes to relationships, it's really important to get down to that nitty gritty and always understand the thought behind the thought. Now, most men, really most anybody in today's world, they're operating out of a sense of insecurity. Most people, okay? Again, men as well as women. And we displace that insecurity in different ways. For men, we tend to be a lot more hostile. We tend to yell, raise our voice, get emotional, versus a woman who is maybe more forthright with what they're feeling. But then the man feels like that's a chip at their manlyhood, and it's like it's a failing thing, like they're failing their relationship. And so they go into conflict resolution, and that's all just yelling, screaming, and nobody really gets anywhere. And the more that we do that, the more it separates us and divides us as individuals and as a couple. So if it's always the same thing, if you always go to your spouse and your spouse is like, I don't care, I'm not going to do anything, this is me, I've always been this way, forget about it. And you're like, well, why do I even bring my troubles to the table anyways? He never listens to me, or she never listens to me. And this is just one thing after another, after another, after another. And a lot of us forget about something really easy, something super foundational, which just is your love languages. All right, we forget how to communicate with each other. And there are certain types of love languages. There's acts of service. There is the material one where you like buying things, kind words, words of affirmation. There's different things that make people tick. And again, with somebody who's operating out of a sense of insecurity, we want to pour security back into them. If we're speaking their love language, it's going to feel like we're constantly filling up their cup with love, with energy and support. And that goes both ways. And we can't have these one-sided relationships where, the woman is doing a great job giving and giving and giving, and a man is just taking and taking and taking, because eventually the wife or the girlfriend or the ex is going to have anger and resentment towards the relationship, because they're going to constantly feel like they're losing themselves. And I've seen a lot of people, and especially women, who will internalize that and say, hey, there's something wrong with me. What's wrong with me? I have this, I got this. I'm failing as a wife. I'm failing as a mom. And to me, I'm like, where's your support? Where's your support at? That's a huge question. And I don't expect every relationship to be flawless. Megan, my wife, and I's, it's not flawless, but it's pretty damn good, especially compared to most that are out there. And the key was communication. Now, Megan hated when we first met, and she'll vouch for this too. I was in a different state, just did some NLP training, neuro-linguistic programming training, asking a whole bunch of questions, speaking like properly, non-confrontational, which then turned into confrontation, because she was like, I sound like I'm talking to my dad. Like, you're not my dad right now. Stop talking like that. I'm like, all right. Well, rule number one with public speaking, whether it's one person or 1,000, know your audience. So if you're taking that into your conversation, what's going to happen? How is that going to be perceived? Is it going to be perceived negatively? Is it going to be perceived as you thinking that you're better than anybody else? What does that look like? Okay. But again, how do we build? Figure out you can go, I think it's free. If you just go online and type in the 5 love languages, figure out what love language you are and figure out what love language your spouse is. That's number 1. Number 2, schedule a date. All right. Date your spouse. So do your love languages, schedule a date, and on that date, talk like you used to do. Talk like when you were dating. Talk like you have love and compassion for each other. Don't bring up work. Don't bring up the weather. Communicate. Start that conversation. Even if you have to have a little alcohol to inebriate you, to calm you down, to lower inhibitions, to have some conversation. That's step number 1. Then go over your love languages. How do you want to be talked to? What is your expectations of the relationship? What is your idea of what a successful relationship looks like? Because a lot of us have different ideas of what a relationship is, again, based off of past relationships or whatever our parents have done. Are they divorced? Have they been divorced multiple times? Do I not take marriage seriously? You know what I mean? What is it? Okay. Do those things. And then past that, if you're like, okay, we made it past this phase, high five, yay, move on to the will, want, won't list. It's like, what the hell is that? Will, want, won't in this particular context is, I want you guys to brainstorm. Will, want, won't. So on one side of your paper, okay, I want you to put down things that you want to do. Absolutely, I will be doing this. This is super exciting to me. This brings me great joy. I want to jump out of an airplane. I want to go hike Mount Everest. I want to go mountain biking. I want to go off-road, whatever it is. Obviously, you heard some of the things that I like in that, but figure out what makes you tick. Write it down. Same thing with the opposite spouse. Write it down, what you want to do. Then you come together and you have a meeting of the minds, if you will. Shouldn't have used that phrase. I hate that phrase, but for reasons of a podcast we'll get into later. So you have a come together with everything, and you'll say, okay, now Jim, I want to go scuba diving. Would you want to do that? Or is it, I will do that? Or is it a no way in hell? Am I going there? There's piranhas. They're going to eat my feet. I can't do it. Okay. So then you tally it, right? So if it's a won't, then just cross it off the list. Now, your spouse, both of you guys have to be responsive to this. You can't just say no to everything just because you're pissed off at your spouse. This is to build you back up together. So do the will, want, won't. If it's something like, hey, I want to go scuba diving, and you're like, well, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with it, but definitely sounds like something that if I do these steps, or if I practice, or if I just learn how to swim first, I think that's something I could definitely do. That would be a want. Or if it's like, oh, hell yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I will absolutely do that. Then boom, you've got wills. Okay. So you go through that, and what you do is you now have material to be able to schedule date nights for the rest of the year if you do it well enough. I mean, even if you just do 12 and you have one each month for the entire year that you can do. And this isn't like, again, scuba diving. This could be like, I want to try out this new restaurant, or I just want to break the routine, try something new, and connect with you. I want to sit out by the fire pit and have a cacao session, look at the stars. Like whatever it is that you want to do, that is a very good start. That allows you to start kind of softening up that language with each other. You start to feel those sparks, that connection again. And it really allows you to figure out, hey, is this something that we can continue moving forward? Or if it's like, no, I can't even talk to my spouse. My spouse doesn't even want to get on this date with me because they're too busy. That's where we start having issues, because you're married to something. Are you married to your work? Or are you married to your spouse? Or are you married to your family? Or are you married to your kids? What is it? Because where you're spending your energy and where you're spending your focus, all of your energy is going to flow to. And every other area where your energy is not going is then going to be starved from your love. So this was something that's really important. Megan and I have talked volumes of this, but when you take the oath or the vow of marriage, when you get married, okay, and you say your vows, you're there. Sickness and health, it's just us. It's us. It is us. Zeno used to say, at the end of the day, it's just us. Like it is, okay? Anything past that is a bonus. If your spouse is hurt and your buddy asks you to go shoot pool with him for no reason, but your wife is injured, you better not do that, or you should expect to be in the doghouse. That should be a realistic expectation, right? If your wife was in a car accident and you're like, well, that sucks, but I have this trip that I scheduled. I'm going to go on this trip anyways. Then it's like, okay, well, hold on a second. There's a time of need. There's things that need to happen. You need to shift your focus. What is your focus on? Okay. Or, hey, I keep opening these businesses and I keep successfully running one. Then I run another. Then I run another. Then I run another. And your wife's like, hey, remember me? Remember when we used to go on dates? Hey, I would love to schedule a date with you. And you're like, sorry, I need to run this business. I need to get this one off the ground so I can sell it or put somebody in play. And then maybe I'll have time for you. So you're very dismissive. You actively dismiss your spouse. Okay. Women can do the same thing. Now, women, you have to be very delicate because nowadays there has been a massive demasculinization of man out there. So a lot of men are too afraid to be men. It's true. That's why I'm dropping on. I'm not afraid to, but I'm going to be dropping off the grid here in a couple of days going to the Northwoods. And I'm going to be with a bunch of guys. And we're just going to do man things out in the woods. Big freaking bonfires. Like just getting back to the roots of who we are in the elements. Okay. Now, the reason I say that is with men and like the women's rights movement, women have been stepping a lot more into their masculine and forgetting about their feminine. So women in the relationship, if you wear the pants in the relationship and you never let him wear the pants at all, you're going to force him to then be feminine, which is going to be more passive, more meh kind of emotions towards you. Okay. Because if you constantly chop his balls off realistic, if you castrate him with everything that you say, you pour more into his insecurity. He will not feel safe. He will not feel comfortable. He will feel threatened and he will lash out at you and push you as far away as possible because you are a massive thorn in his side that shows his areas of weakness. So there's a lot of relationship intricacies that fall into that, but make sure that, again, you're making your spouse your priority. Spouse first, then spouse first, kids and dog, and then anything else past that, friendship, family, whatever. Everything has to be copacetic in your relationship first before you can add other people, right? That's where we need to be serious. Now, we have this tendency as well where one spouse will do self-development, right? And I did this on a podcast with Amanda Clark, and we talked about this, but I wanted to make sure I touch base on it in this specific episode as well. So when you are doing self-development, I used to be told by this idiot that if you don't grow, you go. Like, this guy's a moron. If you don't grow, you go. No, that's not true. If you choose not to grow, if you are still supportive of your spouse's growth, then good for you. If your spouse is like, I want to conquer the world, and you're like, cool, I'll stay back with the kids, I'll be totally fine with that. Okay? If that's the case, then that is where they're able to shine. And so there's nothing wrong with that relationship. We need the yin and the yang. What becomes tricky is when the woman becomes the breadwinner, the woman becomes the driver, the masculine, the one making the decisions, the one with the freedom. And then the man is left behind and they're like, what happened? Now I'm like, wait, what? So you have to keep that open line of communication as you are growing to your spouse and be excited about that. Now, if you're like, hey, I'm so pumped, I just did this train, like my wife, Megan, she just did a soundboard training. If she came home, she's like, I'm so excited. It was so amazing and so blessed. And oh my gosh, it's amazing, amazing, amazing. Which she did say that. And I came in and I was like, nah, that's stupid stuff. That's what gets you excited. Are you kidding me? I had to watch the kids because you wanted to do that. Are you serious? That's a horrible, horrible line of communication. Horrible, right? But men are doing that because they feel insecure that some of their spouse might be outgrowing them or outproducing them. And this is something that has been passed down to us generation to generation, that men are the providers. We have to provide. All the stress is on us. We have to do everything. We have to sacrifice ourselves to make our family safe, right? At the detriment to our health. When a woman steps into that role, it's a role reversal. And so again, sometimes men are very insecure about those types of things. They're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle the situation. But I feel like every time she out-earns me, it's like she's just saying, screw you, I'm better than you. And I don't like that. And then you start butting heads. or he'll try to knock you down, or she'll try to knock you down with whatever it is that you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Just like I said with the sound bowl example. If somebody's trying to take off with trajectory and they're hitting you with heat-seeking missiles along the way, boom, bringing you back down and you're crashing, well, that's not a very solid relationship. It's not a good relationship. We need to fix that, right? There are also seasons in relationships as well. People be a part of your life for a reason or a season, or they can be in your life for forever. But what happens is if you have seasons of growth, there's going to be seasons of neglect that happen in that growth. If you don't do a good enough job letting the spouse know, hey, I'm going to be a little bit selfish here. We're starting up a new business. It's going to be really difficult on me. I need you to be my rock. And I promise, like, I'm going to pay attention to you. I promise I'll still date you, but like, I really need to do this. It's a totally different way to communicate than saying, well, I'm going to go do this anyways. I don't care what you do. I'm going to go do it. The seasons will change. Once the business is up, you'll be able to spend more time and energy towards your relationship as well. And again, having the ups and downs, it's normal. The ebbs and flows are normal in a relationship as long as the relationship is fundamentally sound. When it comes to these relationships, all right, just a quick summation of everything. Make sure that your relationship is solid. Make sure you date your spouse. Make sure that you do and have time to have fun. Don't always just talk about the kids and the work and the stresses in life, because it's just negative bombs hitting you. Don't just Netflix and chill all the time if you don't already have a strong relationship, because all that's doing is creating an environment where you guys are just roommates living in the same home, raising the same kids. Eventually, you're going to be in different bedrooms. Eventually, you're going to be in different houses. And if you conquer the world, but you sacrifice your relationship, then what was the point of the relationship to begin with? What was the point of the business? Why were you growing the business? Was it for selfish means, or was it so you guys can live an abundant life? Think about that next time you have a conversation with your spouse. So I'm going to wrap this up. That's going to be part 1. I'll probably do a part 2 on this, but I wanted to get that out there as soon as possible for us, because I think it's massively valuable and important.